I work on infectious diseases of animals. I'm especially interested in infectious diseases of populations of animals, and some of this overlaps with human medicine as well. I work on viral diseases of these animals, and I teach the virology and the virus diseases of. I grew up on a cattle ranch out in the state of Washington, central Washington. I went to a one-room school. We had between 5 and 18 students in the total school, all 8 grades. And lucky for me, they consolidated the schools when I was in the 7th grade. And so then I went to a larger school that had more resources. You know, they had a great influence in my seeking an education. They said, we were relatively poor. They said, we can't leave you a lot of money, but we can see to it that you get an education. And so education was very important to them. My mother went to school through or into the 9th grade when her father said, hey, you've got to come home and work on the farm. She always regretted that she didn't finish high school at least, and she had the intelligence, I'm sure, to go on to college, but that wasn't available to her. My father went through the 4th grade, but they always appreciated the value of education. And so I can remember as maybe 7 or 8 years old, we'd be outside playing or working with the animals. And one time I specifically remember feeding some what we call bum lambs. They were orphan lambs. And we got to talking among my siblings. What are you going to do with the money when you sell these lambs? And I said, I'm going to save it for college. So my parents had somehow instilled into me this desire. Oh, you're like every other kid, you know, there are things you like and you don't like. I recognized the need for English and grammar, but that wasn't my best subject. I loved physics, chemistry, mathematics. I remember the joy of studying physics. This was in high school, early high school, and learning how the pitcher pump, the pump on a well, works. And I'd always thought you suck the water up, you know, but really it's the air pressure and that pushes the water up into this vacuum that you're creating. That was a revelation to me, because from there I became interested in hydraulics and the pressures of the atmosphere and so forth. So I was able to tie the education into what we were doing on the ranch.
A real world realm.
Real world problems. And this education helped me solve those problems or understand those problems. So it was delightful. And yes, I liked it very much. I might have been born to be a scientist. I don't know, because my brother and I were on this cattle ranch. There were always problems to be solved. There were always inventions to be made, and so this was a part of our early life. I remember for years I worked on the idea of solving the problem of perpetual motion. Of course, I never did, but I was fascinated by that. I did make a electric motor from scratch that ran one time. It ran so fast it blew apart. Luckily, I wasn't injured. Certainly, you have to have a degree of intelligence. But intelligence without hard work, we see lots of people fail that are very intelligent, but they just don't apply themselves. On the other hand, you do have to have a certain level of intelligence in order to make the work pay off. But I would like to say that the term scientist is a very broad term. Some people enter the field and they're a technician. They're also a scientist. Some people go on to become professionals. They're scientists. I mean, you're a physician, you're a veterinarian. And some people go into research and win the Nobel Prize to become Nobel laureates. They're scientists as well. So even though in that vertical spectrum there are people of rather modest overall intelligence, there's a place for them in science. And the geniuses, there's a place for them in science and a challenge for them in science as well. We establish certain goals. Where do we want our life to lead? It may be to be a college professor with a research program. But I didn't start out that way. I knew I wanted to study something with physics in it, science, the physical sciences as opposed to communication. I wasn't going to be a journalist or a television commentator. But I did know I wanted to work in the realm of science. So it was a small decision and a series of small decisions and sometimes big decisions that led me ultimately to where I am. My purpose is to do good, do something for society, something that I'll feel good about as a contribution. And I've pretty much been able to do that. Is it worthwhile? That's a criteria that I put on my work. And it has to pass the so what test. I mean, you find something, some discovery, and if it doesn't pass the, well, so what test, it doesn't satisfy me very much. My specific research interests, they relate to my background. That's probably no surprise. I grew up on a cattle ranch. I'm interested in the cattle industry. I love the cattle industry. When I got my degree in agriculture, general agriculture, I said, I really don't have a marketable profession here. Not marketable in the way I wanted to. So I went to veterinary school and became a veterinarian. And then I said to myself, you know, I can go out there and I can treat animals, but I really want to have an influence over herds of animals and maybe help veterinarians treating herds of animals. So here I am. I teach a course that I was given carte blanche. Do with it what you want. Here's the area. Now do with it what you can and what you want. I'd always wanted a course that would introduce students to viruses and virus diseases. And so I set about doing that. And it's a comparative course in virus diseases. Compares virus diseases of lower animals, virus diseases of man, virus diseases of plants, just a little bit of that, virus diseases of bacteria, and virus diseases of insects. And mostly it's on virus diseases of man and lower animals. And it is a course I wish I'd had. If one doesn't understand the breadth of the virus disease area, you really don't understand your field. So that's been a thrill to me to do that. I start every session with the students with something in the newspaper. Here at Texas A&M, it's the Battalion. That's the newspaper they read. So if there's an article in there on smallpox, bioterrorism, whatever, I take that, and a few times I've said to the students, now you wonder how I'm going to make this relate to this class, this subject matter we're going to study today, but I do, and then
is there now a larger, more urgent mandate for this kind of study now?
Well, there is, and as a matter of fact, today I'm sending a copy of our syllabus and our notes to a colleague of mine at the University of Nebraska who's trying to start a similar course, a similar offering, and he asked if he could see what we're doing. So I'm very proud to send it to him. I think I'm very pleased with what we're able to do. I like to be active. I am a runner, used to run marathons. I still run, I say slower and shorter, but I still do it. I like a little bit of golf, biking. I like to be physically active, yard work, whatever. But also I like to read mostly current events. I'm not really big on fiction, although some historical fiction I do enjoy. If a young person knows exactly what they want to do, I say go for it. But many young people, and this included myself when I was young, looked at this world and saw so many opportunities. What shall we do? You know, and it's just confusing. And I would say to that student, pick what you like to do, pick what you are interested in, and then take the first step and the second step. Some steps will be long, some steps will be short. But to say, I want to go from here to there in one big step is just overwhelming. It was to me, and it is to many students today.